Welcome to Garden Sanity. I'm Laura, and I garden in Zone 7, Southern New Jersey. And today I'm going to take you on a tour of the front garden beds, and I'm going to talk to you about what worked this year and also some things that did not work well at all. I can blame the climate, I can blame the extreme heat and humidity we had, I can blame the excessive rain that we had, but in the end, it's Mother Nature. And it is what it is. So let me show you how everything looks now in mid-September. So first, I'm going to start with the center bed. And this is the largest bed in our front yard. Now, just as a reminder, I have no grass in the front yard. We got rid of our grass back in 2014, so 10 years ago. And we had landscapers put in this hardscaping because we wanted garden paths and beds. And my husband hated mowing. So lucky for me, this is what we did. So this center bed is like a large half circle. You can see the straight part along the sidewalk that runs through the whole neighborhood. And the star of this bed always are the Pinky Winky shrubs. And if this is your first time watching, welcome. There are two shrubs on each side of the crepe myrtle tree, and the crepe myrtle tree is this big tree. And it's basically done with its blooms. You can see one bloom way up there against the blue sky. There might be one or two up there. But that's basically done. And so I've got two Pinky Winkies on each side. Now I could say that these are in their glory now, but the whole season, they're just beautiful. But look at them now. They get that pink color. It's nice, open, and lacy. I've said this before, but I always think that it looks very vintage. Just the petals have that very vintage look. Just really pretty. Now I did an entire video on this shrub because Pinky Winky hydrangeas, they're a panicle hydrangea, are my favorite hydrangeas because they're so easy. Now we have had a brutal summer. Look at the green leaves on these hydrangeas. Now, if you look closely, like down in there, there's a few yellow leaves, but nothing like some of my other panicle hydrangeas. Some of them really took a beating this year, and I'll show you that soon. But these are perfect. Now, these are 10-year-old shrubs, and what I mean by that is I put them in the ground 10 years ago in 2014, but they were probably about maybe 3-4 years old at that point. You got to remember that. Shrubs, when you put them in the ground, they're not brand new. You know, they've already been growing in a nursery or at a breeder's for quite some time. I mean, look at that. Look how beautiful that is. And you get the bright red stems. See that? Against the green leaves. Look at this. Do you see how these glow? Now, it's pretty early in the morning. We'll hear some cars in the background leaving for work. I think I just hear a school bus coming. But look how pretty it looks against the King's Gold Mop Cypress. So this is a pretty combo. This is the Orange Rocket Barberry, which is looking a little burgundy now. But you still see some glimpses of some of the bright orange that it had. More in the summer. The spring, the color is very vibrant, and then the summer, it gets a little darker. Now, I'll put up on the screen, I cut these back to just about 2 feet in the springtime. And they are probably, I would say, almost 4 feet, the tallest parts this year. So they grow pretty fast. And that was my first time really cutting them back too. But I like that by cutting them back, I made them have more of their rocket vertical shape. They'd gotten a little bit too wide. And I have another one down there. But below it, what makes for a really neat color combo, this is a perennial version of ageratum. And look how vibrant it is. That is just so pretty. I really hope this is coming across. I mean, I'm seeing it through the camera viewfinder, but still, in person, it is just something else. And now this is a sea green juniper. So you got the deep green of the sea green juniper. You got the bright green leaves and the purple flowers of the ageratum. You have the yellow gold of the king's gold, the burgundy of the orange rocket, and then the beautiful pink and green of the pinky winkies. And mixed in with all this down here is a starship rose lobelia. And I planted that in the middle here, and it's sort of getting inundated with the other ageratum. But you know what? Now that they're blooming, I love it. The hard part about perennial ageratum is, for the most part, in the spring and summer, it's basically a low-growing green plant, and it could almost, sort of looks like a ground cover, but it can almost look like a weed too as it pops up here and there. Really spreads by seed, but it's pretty easy to control. I really apologize for all the slamming going on nearby, but it's pretty easy to control. The seedlings are very easy to pull out. So down here, in the middle of everything, you get a starship rose lobelia. It still has a few little flowers on it. And you can deadhead this and get more blooms. It starts blooming in midsummer and continues on into the fall, and it has this very nice dark foliage. Really a beautiful plant. And it got a little bit smothered here, like I said. And what grows in this area in the springtime are daffodils. And so this is really nice to have something that over time kind of covers up the dying daffodil foliage. I think once I see the daffodils again in the springtime, so I know exactly where they are, I am going to put another lobelia in here. So I really, really love that plant. So that's this section. And then I come around here, and this is the curved side of the half circle of the bed. And this is the side we see when we come outside. And as you can see right now, it is primarily green, and that's something I'd like to remedy next year, and I'd like to put more late blooming flowers in here. And why I don't do this now is because all throughout this section of the bed there's a million daffodils. It might be maybe more like 100. I think I'm exaggerating a little bit. But see, I even left this plant here that I meant to replace from last year. That was a lantana, and I always leave my annuals to easily replace them in the same spot. But I just wasn't sure what I wanted to put here, so that's still there as a marker. And these plants are beautiful up until about late summer, and then they all kind of stop with their blooming. All right, so this is totally tangerine geum, and it's got some black spot on it, which is typical for this time of year, so I'm not too worried about it, end of the season. And then these 6 plants here, they look like almost like a low ground cover or low dianthus. This is what is left over from the blooming of the Petit Henri, which is the back 3, which is a white lychnis or ragged robin. And then Petite Jenny, its sister, is a pink flower. And I'll put what those look like just to remind you of what they look like in the late spring, early summer. And they're both very long blooming. You get 2 blooms out of them, at least I do. So I cut them back after those first blooms have faded, and then I get a whole nother flush. And then after that I cut them down, and then you can come through, and once those flower stems dry, you can just clip those off. As you can see, I left them all right here in the bed. Mix in with the mulch, no problem. But these will be, in my climate, which is zone 7 in southern New Jersey, they will be evergreen in the wintertime. They'll get a little bit of red to the leaves, and they will get a little bit of brown as the season goes on, but it is a nice patch of evergreen to have here. And like I said, there are so many daffodils in this bed that I'm going to wait until the springtime in order to put more plants in here. But what you do have in here is you do have more of the starship lobelia, and that's what you see, the bright pops of pink against the Fothergilla. and that's a Fothergilla Mount Airy, which is a beautiful, beautiful backdrop in the summertime with its blue-green leaves. This is going to get very vibrant in about another month. Oh my, it is just gorgeous with its fall color. And then this is another Starship Lobelia, but this one, all the blooms were dead, so I just nipped those blooms off to make it look a little bit neater. More of the Geum. And for me, this stays basically evergreen. I say basically because it really depends on the weather we have. And what these are the remnants of the flower stems. So again, they turn brown, and you can either leave them on till the spring or you can cut them off now in the fall. But other than that, you've got a nice green plant. And then down here, you've got a beautiful flower of Geranium Roseanne. Isn't she beautiful? And what happens with Geranium Roseanne is she can start to look a little bit ragged as the season goes on, and you just trim her back and you will get more blooms. And I've had blooms on the Geranium Roseanne, not a lot, sporadic like this, well into November. And in the fall, they will get a little bit of red color. So you do get some fall foliage color, so to speak, which is really nice. Then we have matching the other side over there, another sea green juniper, another orange rocket that, yes, I also had trimmed this one down to about 2 feet. It's definitely happy in this spot. Pardon me for the sun, but I just want to get in here and show you in the very center, you see a little bit of that green color, and then you see some of that vibrant color in there. Really pretty. And again, this is mimicked like the other side. So I've got a Starship Rose Lobelia, I have some perennial ageratum, and you see this hasn't quite bloomed yet. However, some of the blooms have gone underneath and into the King's Gold Mop Cypress, so I'll definitely pull those out at some point, but no big deal. They're easy to pull out. And then, oh yeah, look at that giant weed. Woo! Yeah, let's focus on that. That'll be coming out today. But let's look here instead. This is prettier, right? Let's see. We gotta get that weed out of the picture. There we go. You can see how pretty the Pinky Winkies are. That is just really sharp. There is a lot of traffic this morning. This is the season, it seems to be, for a lot of contractors doing some indoor work on various homes. So again, you'll hear probably more door slamming than you hear birds. Like that. So the fall color on these Pinky Winkies, as we come around on the other side, is just stunning. Really glows. Really looks beautiful. Really pretty against the limbs of the crepe myrtle. Look at this down here. Isn't that beautiful? Still seeing 1 or 2 bees, not too many yet this morning. I guess maybe it's a little cooler out for them so far, but you see the dew is still on many of these flowers as well. And you do see, look at this, you do see 1 or 2 brown ones already. It's only mid-September. And then I've shown you this combination in a previous video, but this is a favorite of mine now, is I have Rosy Posy Agastache next to the, oh, you got a blue jay. I think that's a blue jay. So you have the Rosy Posy Agastache next to the Pinky Winky. And now that the Pinky Winkies are turning this beautiful pink color, they almost match. And what's really nice is having the Rosy Posy here in a very tiny little area of dryness. It doesn't get as much moisture, but it works out perfectly. So this is now in the front of where I just was with the Pinky Winkies and the Agastache. It's actually called Agastache or Agastachy. I keep calling it Agastache, so apologies if anybody kind of cringes when I mispronounce it. I catch myself every now and again. This is a color guard yucca that about 3 years ago, was it, that the rabbits demolished it. It's a toxic plant to rabbits, but I called them pandemic rabbits, and that's what they did. These are beautiful peach drift roses. And they are so easy care. You snip off the blooms. You don't have to snip off the blooms because they will fall off on their own. And then more blooms come. And I just love that combination. Now you do see, of course, you see some of the leaves have a little bit of black on them. I'm completely not worried about that. It's the end of the summer, beginning of fall. It is what happens. And then I planted some Coreopsis golden needles. This is a plant that is going to be new next year from Proven Winners. I've been trialing it out. And you might have seen a previous video, I'll link to it at the end, where I said they sent me one to trial. I loved it so much I bought 11 more. And here's a hint, if you want to snag these now, you gotta hurry. There's some available at greatgardenplants.com. I snagged 11 of them and they still have some left. So you can get in on something before it's out officially at retail centers next year. Now, one of the reasons I planted this is because of this. This sad looking plant, although it looks much better than it used to, is a firelight tidbit. And the leaves are looking much better. Look at that, nice healthy green. I had put iron tone all around this plant. It really was hit with spider mites as well. It just, no blooms on it this year. It looks awful. My neighbor has one that he just planted that looks stunning. I showed him the other day. I said, yeah, these are my firelight tidbits. Not quite looking the same as yours. So it happens. I don't know. I have 3 of them here. I have one there and I have one down at the end. I don't know if I'm going to keep them here next year. This is their second full season. I know things take a few years to settle in, so I am willing to give it another year. I tend to not rip out plants right away if they don't work. I want to give them a go. You know, I spent a lot of money on these shrubs. I want to make sure they work. So if they don't next year, I will dig them up and find a better home for them. I think they might get too much sun, get a little scalded from the sun. This is a Veronica called Georgia Blue, a beautiful evergreen ground cover that is very tame. Compared to a Juga, which spreads a lot, this is going to spread in a very subdued way, very gradual way. But in the spring, sometimes into early summer, it will have absolutely beautiful blue flowers on. So I'm looking forward to that, and I planted a bunch in this bed. And then this is a pancake arborvitae, nice and flat. Let me get down so I show you. And the size of this, it's more of a spreader, not so much height-wise. You more can control the spread just by clipping off the ends of it, letting it stay kind of in bounds. I clipped some of it back when I was planting more plants this year. I planted a totally tangerine geum back there. There's some hellebores. There's a couple verbenas. I planted a verbena lollipop, and I planted some taller verbenas, the Verbena bonariensis, in here too. This is another of the firelight tidbits, looking much better now. And then you have the Paint the Town Magenta dianthus, and you still get blooms off of them. So keep deadheading and you'll keep getting some blooms. So then you have the rose bush, which is still kicking in. You know, I think I've mentioned this before. I kind of keep it more so it can serve as almost a living trellis for the beautiful geranium roseanne. And what I did was on this side, just to give you a comparison, let me go in here. You have this geranium roseanne that I cut back, and that geranium roseanne that I cut back behind it. So you can see, along with a lot of little weeds, and you know what those weeds are? Those are actually the seedlings of the ageratum. Very easy to pick up. So I'll do that, I'll get to that. So you can see what those look like when you cut them back, and then they reflush with new growth, and I might get 1 or 2 blooms off of those roseannes. And then I left this one so you can see how full it still looks. But what you can do is you can come in, and when you see any of these, you know, the brown stuff, you can just gently pull that out. See how that just comes right off? It'll come right off the plant. And it's an easy way to clean up. And then you can just trim it back if you want. In this case, I'm still getting a lot of beautiful flowers. So I'm not doing anything with this one for now. Very pretty. Again, here's some of the golden needles Coreopsis, which what I like is it blooms all summer into fall. You don't have to deadhead it. It keeps blooming. And in the fall, look at this, it's perfect coloring, right? You got some burgundy red, cherry red centers with the beautiful golden yellow petals. And it's kind of cool. Next to the perennial ageratum, I let a big patch of this bloom right here. And there you go, I got my purple color. I don't even need some asters right here. Although I do love asters. And it's almost the same color as the geranium roseanne, so that's very nice to have in front of the pinky winkies. And there you see them in full sun. Let me zoom in so you can see it better. Look how nice that is. Isn't that pretty? And then this is what the bed looks like from this angle. Beautiful. So now I've stepped a little bit further away from the center bed, and this is one of the side beds that we have. And this is a beautiful piglet grass. Look how stunning this is. It fills out so beautifully every year. And then if you look really close, the grass starts to get some yellow. And that's partly on its slow way to going dormant. But how beautiful is that? You know, again, it's like perfect for fall. And looks really pretty in front of the little lime hydrangeas. So this is the back part of the bed, and the stone you see in front of the arborvitaes, this is my neighbor's yard. So I just want to show you what the back of this bed looks like. Got beautiful arborvitaes. And then we have 3 mugo pines here. Some nice evergreen. So they get some nice evergreen on the edge of their property. And then let me go through these stones so you can see how pretty in the dappled sunlight the little lime hydrangeas look. Now they're getting some yellow leaves, to be expected, but they're turning beautiful shades of pink. These are some beautiful impatiens that I tried. I just tried 3 of them, and they did great here under the tree. They like more shade. It worked out perfectly. Now next year, if we cut the river birch back a little bit, which is above us, that may change. These are 3 Kramer's Red Winter Heaths, which absolutely are the pride and joy of my garden in the winter time. You can see some of the bright green. I'll show you better on another plant. And these will be covered in beautiful magenta flowers. From about December they start, kick in January, and then all winter. They're just beautiful. Then this is a Japanese hellerii. 2 more, Paint the Town Magenta Dianthus. Those stay evergreen or ever blue. And this is one of the reasons I want to cut back. We want to cut back. We got a lot of dead stems that fall off into the garden, and the higher we cut the tree up a little bit, I think the better this will be. I mean, this is just it's a garden chore that I could do without. So let me just step back and show you. The tree really comes over, it comes over a lot onto the little lime hydrangeas that are here. And I think it did affect them somewhat. I think they needed a little bit more sun, as much as it was a brutal summer. So I do want to cut the tree back a little bit, and we'll do that this fall. And you'll see a lot of the yellow leaves that start coming this time of year on the hydrangeas. So it's a normal thing that happens. Don't get discouraged. Now in front of the hydrangeas, this is what I'm still trying to work out. You know, someone asked me, what do you plant as a companion plant in front of little lime hydrangeas? And I have tried so many things, and I think I finally settled on what I'm going to do. So this, and there's 4 of them here, again is calamaris, which I love this plant. It's beautiful. It just hasn't been doing well. I think it needs to be divided. Then you have a really small Veronica. I think this, boy, I'll put the name of it on the screen. It's a very small variety. And it really didn't do that great this year. I mean, I didn't even, maybe I got 1 bloom off it. I'm not even sure. This is a geranium roseanne, and there's also one back there, which is great. This is the blue star juniper that I love having here. However, it got too much shade this year from the river birch. So it will do much better, I think, when we give it more sun. So here's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to take this calamaris out and repot it. And I'm going to take out This is actually a calamaris, and I'm gonna take that out. And there's two more. There's one there and one there. And what I'm gonna put in their place, because this is a drier area, is I'm gonna put 4 Pugster amethyst butterfly bushes. And I'll put on the screen what that looks like. I have 2 of them in my backyard in the drought tolerant bed, and they are stunning. And so just growing them for one season showed me that that's what I want in this area. I want it to look a lot fuller. It looks kind of in front of these beautiful limelights. So I want this to be nice and full and beautiful. So I'm going to start this fall with putting those in. And the reason I can put those in this fall, I'm in Zone 7, Southern New Jersey, so I can handle planting butterfly bushes in the fall. However, if you're in a colder zone, you may not want to do that. You may want to wait till the spring. The other reason I'm going to put them in those exact 4 spots is because there are, again, a lot of bulbs here, including some summer snowflakes. And I just want to make sure that I'm not digging up any bulbs because I love my bulbs. So up from that, this is a Kramer's Red Winter Heath plant I planted last year, and it's doing just fine. And then what bounced back this year are the white heathers. You can see right down here at the base, you can see how pretty that green is. But they bounced back and they have a few blooms. They had gotten kind of beat up last summer. They took a real beating. So I just left them here. And I've got a few different ones back here. Let me show you. Look how nice that is. I mean, this is just a beautiful, beautiful plant. They used to be much more bushy and they didn't do so well. And this guy, I had to cut back quite a bit. So he had a lot of dieback this year. And we even have this seedling that's next to the sprinkler head. So I'll be digging that up, repotting that, finding another home for it. But I'll leave it for the winter because look at it. It's got some bright green on it, which means flowers. Look how pretty all of the little limes are. And I'm setting you up because now we get to a section that is really upsetting for me. And this is a prime example coming up of what did not work at all this year. I've got a little quick fire to show you. Oh, and this is a firelight tidbit. Awful, awful, awful. So both got hit with spider mites and both got hit with not nearly as much water as they need. So we have this sprinkler down here and it does hit them, but not as much as they need. There are sprinklers behind them that hit the ground, but the arborvitaes have gotten so big and the arborvitae roots are very shallow as well as deep. So they take up a lot of water. They've been fine with these, I think, because these little limes we put in 2014. I put this little quick fire in 2 seasons ago and it just did not do well. So you see the leaves there, that's kind of what they look like all summer. And now it doesn't look as bad, you know, it almost looks like, oh, that's some fall color. You know, you have some pink on it. It looks okay. It looked awful, 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 awful. And what was really awful is what I thought would be a real stunner in the front yard is this firelight hydrangea. I think I might have said firelight tidbit. It's a firelight, full size. I thought it would be a beautiful anchor. Let me go around here. I thought it would be a beautiful anchor that you would have the pinky winkies over there. And then you would have this beautiful firelight, you know, going up 6 to 8 feet with the backdrop of the arborvitaes and how beautiful it would look. It just is not happy here. Again, spider mites, 2nd year in a row, and I don't think it got enough water. I did treat it with iron tone, and again, you can see the newest leaves are beautiful. So there is hope for this plant. But I'm not going to go another season with it. So I will leave it in the ground now. But in the spring, I'm digging this up, and I'm going to move it into another spot. I'm not sure where. It'll probably be in the backyard somewhere. But it needs more water, and it needs a little bit more care. It needs to get away from this spot. What I will plant in its place is I think I'm going to plant a butterfly bush. I'm thinking of Miss Molly, but we'll see. But a butterfly bush could handle this because it doesn't get as much water there, and I think that would do much better. But yeah, this poor hydrangea, I mean, I got 1 flower off of it. Oh, so yeah, this was a complete failure, which was such a shame. Now, in front of this disaster, I had planted 2 Sassy Summer Taffy yarrows, or Achillea. These didn't bloom. Last year I got blooms. First year I planted them, which, you know, sometimes can happen when you first plant a plant. Comes from the nursery, it'll do fine. And then the second year you're kind of like, what happened? Well, that's the sleep, creep, leap mentality. So the first year they sleep, although I did have some blooms last year. So this was technically the creep year, and that means not creepy, but the roots are creeping underground, and it did put out beautiful bushy growth. But you're kind of left wondering like, well, what's going on? And then the third year, supposedly they're going to leap. So I'm assuming these are going to bounce back and be beautiful. Again, beautiful green color all year. I just didn't get any flowers off of them. So I'm not that concerned. I mean, look how bad this is. Oh my God. It's just so bad. And what was really a shame is look at this. This was gorgeous this year. Now let me put a picture up so you can see what it looked like at the height of its beautifulness. I don't even know if beautifulness is a word, but there you go. Isn't that pretty? So now we're in the seed head phase. So I still have some blooms coming out. And yeah, you could deadhead these and get more flowers, but I just like to leave them. Let it be, you know, nature take its course. Now, this is also a sassy summer taffy. I did get a flower on this plant back here. So it's kind of hiding back there. So that one did produce. And then what's in here, you see the purple? That is a grape sensation blanket flower. And it's kind of getting, you can see the plant right down there. It's kind of getting hidden and overtaken by all of the black-eyed Susans, but I'm going to leave it. This is more of it right here. You get a better sense of what the plant looks like. And I just bought 7 more of these because I'm going to plant them in other spots in the garden because I absolutely love this plant. It is beautiful. It's a really unique blanket flower because A, it's purple, and it has that easy care quality of being a blanket flower that you don't have to deadhead. When the flowers fade, and you can see some of these flowers are fading now, you'll be left with this center ball that keeps its beautiful burgundy color. So I haven't had too many flowers coming out yet, but I do see, for example, here's a flower that's going to bud. Here's a flower, not going to bud, it's going to bloom. I haven't had my tea yet. That's my excuse. So this is going to look beautiful in a couple weeks. Very pretty. And yeah, I still have some black-eyed Susans. Then these are 2 piglet grasses that are looking really neat. One's a little bit bigger than the other one. I don't know why. We transplanted these a few years ago. Again, you have the yellowish stems, but you also have some reddish color. And that might even be from too much water, but I don't care. It's beautiful. This is a really dry area, but we ran the sprinklers a couple times earlier in the week because we actually haven't gotten rain, so maybe it got a little red. I mean, I haven't seen it be red before, so that's really neat. And then in between, you see the dried flowers of a sea holly. And I love the way that looks. Isn't that beautiful? And that was a vibrant blue this summer. I'll put a picture on the screen so you can see how gorgeous it was. And now it's, you know, it's done for the season. And it'll dry back to absolutely nothing. And I might put a little stick there so I just remember where it is because I didn't even think it was going to come back this year. It dies back to the ground here. So that's this beautiful area, along with the arborvitaes. And then across the way, we have knockout roses and the Verbena bonariensis I was talking about. This is the remnants of Russian sage, which I still haven't moved. I guess we should play a game. How many videos have I mentioned I'm going to move this? It's Russian sage superba, way too big for this spot. I have to keep cutting it back, and when you cut it back, what do? You remove the flowers. So I still have some flowers, luckily, but it's nothing like it could be. So this needs to be moved back. I'm going to move this into the backyard in a full sun spot where it'll be so happy. So this is the Verbena bonariensis, which I also had to cut back a little bit so that you could actually get through to the gate. So if you see, each one of these flower heads is made up of a bunch of flowers. Well, it also has a bunch of seeds. And so what I did was I just clipped off this part, and I did that for a bunch of them, and then I just tossed them in different parts in our garden because these seed so easily, and I actually want them to spread around a little bit more. So we'll see if my experiment works. I tossed some behind the little limes. I tossed some into the center bed. There is a bird right in... Okay, I don't know what kind of bird's here, but there's a bird on the other side here of the Silver King euonymus. All right. Okay, I hear you. I hear you. And then these are the knockout roses, which can be such a problem for so many, but it's worth it if you can really keep the black spot under control. I'm still getting beautiful flowers. They grew nice and tall after pruning them down to about 3 feet in the springtime. Just stunning. And the leaves are a lot better now. I mean, they got hit with black spot. More Canadian geese. You guys are getting all the sound effects of being outdoors. So yeah, so I had another round of black spot I had to deal with this year. But used my neem oil, picked off as best I could all of the black spot leaves. You can still see some in here, you know, right there. But I picked off as best I could, and you want to keep the ground underneath as clean as possible. So if some of the black spot leaves drop, you want to pick them up. You don't want that sitting around. And yeah, there's still some bug damage, but overall they look really good right now. And I deadheaded these the other day, so all of the red that you see is already new growth happening, which is really nice. Some years when we've had very mild falls, I've been able to keep these blooming into November. One year it was almost to Thanksgiving. It's kind of a fun little game I played. So how long can I keep these going? And see here, you've got a lot of rosebuds forming. So that's what they look like there. Just a beautiful, beautiful combination in the summer when you have these in full bloom and then you have the black-eyed Susans in full bloom. Again, I'll put a picture on the screen. Just so pretty. Now, this is Candy Tuft doing its evergreen thing, which is wonderful. And that's going to be evergreen all winter. And this is a bowling ball arborvitae, which is just adorable. Now, they say you don't have to prune this. I may shape it in the spring. You know, it's just about reaching its mature size. It's about, you know, not quite 3 feet tall, 3 feet wide. But I may shape it up just a little bit. You don't have to, but I may. And this is more Candy Tuft. This is a Pink Diamonds Decentra, or Bleeding Heart, and it's done with its blooming. I wish it was a little bit bigger, but it's not getting as much sun as it should. I may move it next year. I'm not sure. This is an ornamental maple. It didn't have a tag when we bought it. I don't know what kind it is, but it's nice. You know, it does the job. And then this is the Lavender Topiary, one of them. I just cut that back. And so you can see how close I cut it back. And also, I left some green on it. And that'll reflush. And I should get, you can already see some new growth happening. You see it happening, whoop, right there. So I'll get a little bit of growth, and then it'll be a nice ever gray color for the winter time. And then I did something scary. Are you ready? Okay, are you sitting down? Okay. I did that. I did this. Look at this. So this is a lavender phenomenal. And I did this as an experiment. And it may cost me, it may not. We'll see. I've had quite a few people comment that they prune their lavender down into the wood and it grows back just fine. So I'm trying it. I want to see what happens. I figured I will sacrifice a plant if need be, but I want to see what that's all about, if that's true or not for this variety, for any variety, but this is what I've got, is Lavender Phenomenal. So it looks awful right now because I literally trimmed it down into the wood, something I say never to do. But I'm willing to try it and just, you know, I'll be the experiment for all of us. So we'll stay tuned for that next spring. But yeah, we'll just try to ignore that right now. I'm glad it kind of blends in with the mulch. And then over here, I love that I planted another Kramer's Red Winter Heath. Now this one's definitely going to need to be pruned in the spring next year once it's done blooming. But you see all the beautiful bright green, and that's going to be all the flowers. But I love how it kind of covers up some of the ugly legs of this topiary. It wasn't as attractive a topiary as it could have been because I kind of made it out of the woody lavender I had. but I like the way that looks. And it's a nice anchor because I've got Kramer's Red Winter Heath dotted all around the front landscape. So that looks really nice. And then back here is more what I had mentioned of the Silver King euonymus, which I don't want to go too far back because I have no idea if a bird is still in there. I know the mourning doves like to hang out in there. So that's that foundation bed, and it could probably use a little bit more color, although it would have some more color if I hadn't chopped down that lavender plant, but we'll see. And then got our front entrance, and then this is the other foundation bed, and this one is just doing fabulously well. So you have a lot of fun stuff in this bed. There is, I should say I have a lot of fun stuff in this bed. This is a Hinoki cypress that is just thriving here. It is so beautiful. It's probably grown easily about almost 3 feet since we got it. And we planted this maybe 8 years ago, 7 years ago. Again, this is more of the Silver King euonymus, and you'll notice it is really cut back, and it exposed a lot of bare spots. However, there's also a lot of new growth now that the sun is getting at it again. So it'll rejuvenate, but boy, it had to be cut back. It was like a jungle. Another ornamental maple, unnamed, and then lavender topiary number 2, mirroring the other bed, again made from woody lavender. And then this is the other lavender phenomenal, mirroring the one that I chopped to bits. So this one, you'll notice I cut properly. So I cut it just above the woody base, the woody growth, and left a lot of the healthy color. Then you have this beautiful Dusty Miller. But I'm going to wait to divide this. I keep talking about dividing it. I'm going to wait until next spring because I want to stick it all over the place. And I'm going to put it around a lot of the daffodil bulbs so that it can help camouflage the dying daffodil stems. But I'm also still getting some beautiful yellow flowers on it. Really nice. Here, back here, let me step back here so you can see how pretty that is. I mean, my goodness. That is just pretty. And then you've got the tiny quickfires. And I had a video on this I recently added to the tiny quickfires, making a little tiny quickfire hedge that's going to go across, and it'll go behind these shrubs. So here you have more of the candy tuft that goes around. You have a Japanese hellerii. Now I'm on the other side because of the shadows. So you have the blue star juniper, pardon me, didn't want to leave him out. Those are the newest tiny quickfires I planted. And in just 1 year, that's what those look like. So next year, it should be absolutely beautiful. Again, the Kramer's Red Winter Heath, look at all the bright green. Isn't that amazing? That's all going to be flowers. This is always the best growing one for me. It's just beautiful. And then we've got lantana that is still doing its thing, which looks absolutely beautiful. I didn't really picked out what they had at the local nursery. So I didn't get the usual varieties I wanted to get, but these are all very pretty. They were just generically labeled, like pink and yellow. So I just planted them, and they're doing fine. And then these are the Tempo Rose Geums that took somewhat of a beating in the summertime, and they're doing better now. I trimmed off, like I mentioned I was going to do, I trimmed off a lot of the brown leaves. And these will basically be evergreen. They get a little bit more beat up than the Totally Tangerines do, but they're semi-evergreen, I guess you would call them, for the winter. And then, besides the lantana, I have a beautiful blue star juniper here. And then to complement the Kramer's Red Winter Heath in this bed, this is the lamppost bed, and I have Kramer's Red in here, and look how bushy this has gotten. And again, look at all that beautiful bright green. That is beautiful. That's going to be all flowers all winter. Then you have the Manhattan euonymus. And by the way, for euonymus or boxwoods, if you get an errant stem that pops out after you've done your pruning for the season, like this one, you can easily just, chop that off. You can just take your pruners and get that off. It won't do any damage to the plant. So note to self, I got to come out and do that. And then look at the Little Lime Punch Hydrangea. This was worth the wait because the first season it didn't do so great. It kind of browned out. The second season it semi-browned out. Last year it was a lot better, and this year it's perfect. I mean, full sun, brutal temperatures, and just look at this color. I mean, wow. It makes me wish that I might have planted, this wasn't out at the time that I planted my little lime hydrangeas, but in that far bed over there, boy, if these would have been available back then, I might have planted these. You know, it's hindsight, so I see how well they're doing. They absolutely look absolutely beautiful. I say absolutely twice, just to emphasize how pretty they are. And yeah, the leaves got a little beat up. Again, this time of year, I'm not that worried about them. You still see a little bit of white on this one. But just look how beautiful that is. It just glows. Really pretty. And then over on this side, what you have is you have another blue star juniper. So again, I like that combination. I've mentioned it in a previous video where you have the blue star juniper with the Kramer's red. Got a lot of nice evergreen in this bed, which is nice. So you don't want a lamppost bed that's just all filled with, you know, deciduous things that are just going to be sticks and twigs for the winter time. And then this is a Mango Tango Agastache. It's not as happy as it could be. And again, it's only its second year being planted. So I think that it might do better next year. So I'm not that worried about it. It did have beautiful blooms on it, and it does get enough water. And then hiding behind it is a candy tuft that I just never got rid of. And every year I just leave it there. So that's the lamppost bed, and it's a very, very pretty bed. And the final bed is the other side bed, as I call it. And this is filled with red and yellow twig dogwoods going up the property line. It's just always so beautiful. You can see the red stems. And you can see the thinner red stems, or the newer red stems, just very beautiful. And the leaves are starting to go now. And the color on the red is sort of like this, you know, nothing that fancy, but it's pretty. You get, you can see through there, there's a little bit of a reddish color on some of them. The yellow twig dogwoods, let me get in here so you can see, they're going to get that bright yellow that you see there. And those almost glow. It is absolutely beautiful. So that's a really nice one to see. So the fall color is okay, but these are primarily grown for the winter time for their stems. But I think it makes a beautiful backdrop to other plants. These are Little Henry Sweet Spires. Now the ones in my backyard are in more full sun, so they're almost turning completely red now. These are just starting to get red. And the color is beautiful. And what I love about these is the color stays on the shrub. In other words, these leaves don't fall off right away. So I mean, look at this pretty leaf. So you could have the red color all the way into December because the leaves don't fall off this for quite some time. So it makes for a lovely extra little bit of fall color. I'll tell you, this shrub has it all. It loves the wet. So if you have a damp spot, it loves it. The flowers in the spring, it's sort of late spring, early summer, are white, and they stay on the shrub like this, which you can either leave on for winter interest or you can just take those off. And it does spread a little bit, so it spreads by suckers a little bit. Right down here you see one or two, and you can easily dig those up. If you needed to dig those up and you didn't want it to spread, you can do that, but I don't mind that it's going to spread all into this, almost making it like an extra shrub. So I don't mind that at all. So here's more of that pretty color that I was talking about that you get on your red twig dogwood. So you got a little bit of red, a little bit of green. And this is a Mugo pine. Now this pine is huge. It's gotten so huge over the years. This is about a 10-year-old, oh no, more than 10 years old. This is probably a 15-year-old shrub since we planted it. It was one of the first things we planted in the backyard, and then we moved it up front. What I will do is I will be cutting this back a little bit. I started to do that in the spring and then quickly found out by accident as I rubbed against it that the sap sticks to you, and man, it doesn't come off that easily. So this is a job to come out with Pants, you don't care if they get sap on them. And take your time pruning it. So I will do that in the spring. In the winter, it is just going to look stunning as a nice big evergreen shrub. That is just really pretty. And down here is another patch of the perennial version of Ageratum. And you can see there's a couple of blooms there coming out. And then you have up the side here little lime hydrangeas. And these ones really struggled this year. I think it was just, they're newer than the ones planted back in 2014 on the other side. These were planted about 3 years ago, and they're just still getting established. But they look really good. I mean, the flowers look good. It's the leaves that weren't so hot. But it is what it is. And in front of that is a beautiful aster, and I'll put the name of it on the screen. This is going to be a new plant available at retail next year. And again, I'm trialing this out for Proven Winners in Walter's Gardens. And in the midsummer, it had some beautiful, beautiful purple flowers. This is a new plant. And what I mean by new is it's a young plant. But normally these will bloom midsummer into fall. And I'll put a picture on the screen from Walter's Gardens so you can see how beautiful it's going to look. This is a Roseanne that I cut back. And you can see it flushed out again with beautiful blooms. Now earlier in the summer, it had stems that went all through the little lime hydrangea. Then I cut those back, and now it's flushed out again. Then again, to mirror the other side bed, I have to paint the town magentas, dianthus. Still get blooms every so often. Wonderful Japanese helleri, which is a great alternative to boxwood. You know, if you're struggling with boxwood and you want a beautiful deep green colored shrub, it gets bright green color. You've got a little bit of it on the new growth here, but it gets bright green color in the springtime. And it's just a beautiful, dependable shrub. These are going to have to be dug up and figured out. These are 2 Veronicas that just didn't do great this year. They didn't even bloom. So that was a failure. I mean, it was really upsetting. These were miniature Veronicas, just like I had in the other side bed I showed you, although I'm calling this the other side bed to confuse me as well as you. So I have to figure that out. I'm going to pot them up and see if I can rehabilitate them. Again, added some verbena for color, and you also see a rose that popped up. This used to be all knockout roses in this bed, and once I had so much black spot I could not handle it. So my husband nicely dug them up for me, because I sure as heck couldn't do it. And we must have left a root in there, but I'm leaving it because I think it just looks neat. It's just a little pop of color, and it stayed small like that. So you got another Roseanne, more Paint the Town Magenta Dianthus, and then this is a stunning plant. I've been trialing this since last year for Proven Winners in Walter's Gardens. It's a sedum that is just stunning. It has almost a jet black color in the summer, and now look at it. It starts to get this burgundy tone to it, and the flowers are so pretty. Look at those pink flowers. Now this is going to spread quite a bit, and so that's why I'm leaving it here, but I think I'm hoping it fills in this space here and a little bit behind it, but I do want to plant more of these because it is just a nice contrast with all the green colored leaves and foliage in this bed. Really pretty. And this is more annual lantana and another little lime. And then I showed you this in a previous video. This is the corner where I added some Coreopsis recently and some agastache. And this is always a nice little vignette here because you have the agastache, the little lime hydrangeas, you've got the Millennium alliums that are almost finished. And I added the Coreopsis. Then you have more lantana. You have a struggling agastache. See, I remembered this time. That's another Mango Tango, so I gotta take care of that. Give it a little more TLC next year. And then I just planted these yesterday. These are 3 of the Grape Sensation blanket flowers that I just ordered. I ordered 7 of them, as I mentioned. And these came from rareroots.com, which is in Virginia, and they are in mint condition. This is how they arrived. I just got them yesterday and put them right in the ground. These normally will bloom midsummer into fall or late summer into fall. It remains to be seen. So I thought that would be a nice punch of color right here where it can take a little bit more drier spot right there. And what I had replaced was a couple Veronicas that just died. This is a Veronica that doesn't look that great, and I am going to dig it up and replant it probably in the same spot. Because when I dug up the other Veronicas that were here, they were potted in some kind of mixture that I hadn't noticed when I first planted it last, God, it was like 2 or 3 years ago I planted it. A lot of dried peat moss came out of that hole. Well, that's just going to prevent water from going way down into the roots, and the roots were very, very minimal. So I think that wherever I got these from, whatever nursery had planted them in pots, just planted them in a mixture that just really wasn't the best idea. So this is Royal Candles Veronica, and it still has a few cute little blooms on. That one did well. And then I've got a really neat plant to show you. This is going to be, I think it was at retail in some places already this year, but this is going to be out next year. It's called Cookies and Cream, and it is from Proven Winners, and it is a hibiscus. And look at that beautiful dark color. Now, it doesn't look like much now, and this is really what it's going to look like when it usually dies to the ground. And so in the springtime, you might be saying, well, where is it? Give it a chance, and if you're not sure, maybe put a stick in the ground, which I'm going to do in the fall just so I remember where it is. And when it grows, it's going to eventually cover this whole space. So this is a large space, and it's a lot of empty space right now, but this is going to fill it in because it's going to get 3 feet tall and about 3 to 4 feet wide. And then behind the hibiscus is another Hinoki cypress. This one is a dwarf Hinoki cypress. Also just a really happy plant, happy in its spot. So thanks for taking this tour with me of my front yard gardens. I hadn't done one of these since the spring, and I thought, you know what, it's about time to show you how everything looks again. It was a brutal summer, had some successes, some failures, but now I'm embracing the fall season. It's just a nice time to be outside. So until next time, happy gardening.